everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gen Ed. Lewis and I are really excited for this episode, especially. I actually found the guest while I was on a YouTube binge hole, just watching different TED Talks, at like midnight one night. I don't know why I got into TED Talks one night, but here we are. Um, we have Mr. Joe Ruhl with us today. So, Joe, would you please just tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you came from?
Well, first of all, I just recently, I guess it was June of 2020, recently retired after 42 years of teaching high school science courses.
Wow.
And so,
Congratulations.
Wow.
thank you. But I love teaching so much. And even up to the day I retired, I still loved teaching because I just loved working with people who are fun and funny and energetic and engaging and enthusiastic and inspiring and insightful. And those people who I worked with who had those qualities were all, 14 to 18 years of age. And I loved it. And I still love it. And every once in a while, I have the opportunity to speak to groups of teachers and hopefully inspire them and share teaching ideas with them and encourage them. And I just love doing that. And so I do that a little bit every once in a while on the side. It kind of keeps me out of trouble, and it's not constant work, and it's not so much for the money. It's just that I love it so much. And so I just enjoy doing that. So I still try to keep involved somewhat in education. And so anyway, yes, 42 years. I taught ninth grade, mostly ninth grade biology, and a genetics course, human genetics course for juniors and seniors. And that was an elective course. And I loved it because I loved the challenge of keeping up on the latest developments in medical genetics, especially modern molecular genetics and its applications in medicine and agriculture, industry, and so on. Then I also taught a research class where juniors and seniors in high school who were interested could they would have release time last period of the day to go just across the river, just across the Wabash River to Purdue University, about 10 minutes away. And each student had the opportunity to work in a research lab under the mentorship of a professor or graduate student in an area of science or engineering or medicine, an area of their choice. And so
That is
over the
fascinating.
last, it was a lot of fun. Over the last 20 years, I had a total of, I don't know, it was over 300 students who went through that course. And so they would work in a real university research lab for the entire school year. And then at the end of the school year, they would present their projects in various regional and even international science fairs. And that launched a lot of careers over the years. And so that was very gratifying for me just to take those students who had the passion and who were really interested and, point them in the right direction and just let them fly, pursue their dreams. And what really was exciting for me is at the end of the year when they would present their projects to me, if they were in an area other than my own area of biological sciences, if they were in, let's say, nuclear engineering
Mm.
or neuroscience, which is biology, but a very specific field in biology. If they were in, let's say,
Yeah.
nuclear engineering or chemical engineering or veterinary medicine or botany or entomology or biochemistry or physics or, or chemistry or any area, if they were in an area other than my own area of biology, when they presented their projects to me at the end of the year, what they were talking about would totally go over my head, which was fine and dandy with me because I learned stuff and I knew I was just, pointing them in the right direction. So those are some of the things I did. So the fun thing for me was I taught students on both ends and all in between of the academic spectrum, from at-risk students who hated school at one end to the gifted students at the other end of the continuum. I loved them all. They were all very rewarding in their own unique ways. I loved the challenge of taking the very basic student at the beginning of ninth grade who came in on the first day of school and said, I hate science. I loved that challenge.
Hmm.
Then trying to share with them the love that I had for science, especially biology, and show them just how cool it could be. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last 42 years.
42 years. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, lifelong teacher right there. So
Oh,
you've obviously found your passion. I was wondering, what got you into teaching to begin with?
well, I always had an interest in science even when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I remember, oh, I was probably in about the fifth grade. And this new television program series came on, weekly series came on to TV, brand new, Star Trek.
Oh.
I just I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so I think the original hook was science fiction, which
Mm,
then led to my interest in science. And it just kind of grew from there. And we lived out in the country most of my life when I was growing up, so I could mess around in the woods and in the creek. And we had animals. We had dogs and cats, of course, but we also had chickens and a pony and this. And so I just kind of got interested in nature, wildlife, animals in general, how things grow, and so this early interest in biology just kind of started to get cultivated in that way. And then when I went to college, freshman year, I took a bio course for freshmen taught by a professor by the name of Dr. Sam Postlethwaite, and he was a real pioneer in education, very innovative. Um, I remember we would go into the class. It wasn't a typical class. It was not traditional.
mm,
It was very creative and very innovative. This was before this was before computers, okay?
yeah.
I mean, back in those days when I was in college in the early 70s, mid 70s, a computer was in a huge building, okay? And it was awful. And we didn't have the desktop computers and nothing like that.
Mm,
And so in his course, in his biology course, we would go in and we could arrange time during the week when it was convenient for us to go into a learning center and sit down to a booth with a tape recorder and a printed study guide and put on headphones and listen to a taped lecture. But it wasn't just a lecture. Periodically, it would say, turn the tape off now and go to station number whatever and observe the plant there and make these observations and then come on back and fill in this information in your study guide. So it's hands on and you could go at your own pace, okay? And when you were ready, when you had gotten through the entire study guide, through the entire tape, when you were ready, then you could take an oral quiz with a teaching assistant. Sit down, take an oral quiz. And I just loved it. It was so different. You could go at your own pace. And that really got me interested in teaching. And I thought, it looks like teaching might be fun. And I loved biology anyway. And it looks like teaching could be one of those fields where you could really be creative. And that's kind of what got me hooked, I guess,
that's
as I saw it as not just a traditional career, but something that could really allow me an opportunity to be creative and to share my passion, my interest in science with students. That's kind of how it started.
well, I'm sure all your subsequent students over those 42 years definitely appreciated that moment where you made that realization that teaching could be fun and that you then went on to make it fun for them. I remember, at least in high school, one of the teachers that inspired me the most was my Latin teacher, and he he used to go do research in Italy and go on digs and all of that. And so
Hmm.
he would bring to class these Roman artifacts. I remember one day he came in dressed as a Roman soldier, just threw open the door, dressed as a Roman soldier, yelled
Oh,
out to all of us to get up, and we left the classroom, went outside, and studied Roman marching formations. So,
oh my goodness. Neat. That's awesome.
so yeah, like teachers that really break tradition, I find, are so inspiring and really make the classroom interesting. Um, and that's something that actually has maybe been lacking, especially in the past year when we've switched to online learning, because now we've kind of transitioned to a point where it's like the classroom, but it's even more rigid than the classroom.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and some people are saying that this is going to end up being the future of learning in a certain way, even though even though students clearly cannot tolerate this kind of learning long term. What do you think? Um, what do you think about the future of learning and about online learning in this case?
Well, my hope and prayer is that we will worldwide
Mm.
beat this pandemic eventually if people would just follow the science. Okay,
Yes.
come on, people,
Mm,
and so that's what I look forward to. Okay, I don't want this to be a lifelong or continuous thing where we have to do total virtual learning. I mean,
mm,
it has its place. I mean, technology is so useful and so important. I mean, in my own teaching, I patterned myself after my, like I told you, Dr. Postlethwaite's course, only I replaced the booths, the study carrels, and the tape recorders and whatnot with computers
mm,
and computer self paced computer tutorials that I developed for the students to work through with headphones, and they could go through at their own pace, um, and those I designed to take the place of the things that I used to lecture on. And the kids loved that. But yet we were there in person,
mm,
right? I mean, this was pre COVID. And so I could wander around the room and respond to questions that they had if they were having difficulty as they went through the programs and whatnot. So I think that human interaction in person has to be there. And that's why I so long for the end of the pandemic.
mm,
And I I guess I taught under the present pandemic virtual conditions for 2 or 3 months right before I retired,
yeah.
and it was not fun just seeing students' images on a computer monitor. That was not fun. Not being able to be there in person.
Mm,
We have to have that, and the teacher's role is so vitally important. And I really believe that in the future, teachers will be one of those professions that will just not be able to replace
mm,
totally with technology. Now, effective teachers will use technology in creative ways to enhance their teaching, but I so long for the days, and I think things are loosening up somewhat, but hopefully we'll be able to return to that kind of a world.
So you said you taught for a couple months under the current pandemic measures. How did you
Yes.
try and cope with that and innovate and try and still make the class interesting for your students?
Oh, it was tough. It
Mm,
was difficult. I was able to take my computer tutorials that I had developed,
yeah.
and what I did was I would I they were not in a format that they could be put on online for
Mm.
kids to use, and that's a whole nother story. And so what I did was I created YouTube videos of me going through the computer tutorials and talking to the students, and put those on YouTube, and gave the students access to those unlisted YouTubes, and
Mm,
then so it was like we were there, kind of. So it wasn't just straight old lectures.
Mm.
So I was still able to do it somewhat, but it took a heck of a lot of work. And it wasn't really the same as all of us being together in person. It was kind of a compromise effort. And so it's very challenging. Now, I'm sure there are people, colleagues of mine, who have even better ideas on how to make their virtual learning environment even more interactive. But those are some of the things that I try to do. And like I said, I know all the teachers who I know are just eager to get back to in person. And now the school that I retired from has the high school,
Mm.
upper four grades, has about 2,300 students. And I've kept in touch with my colleagues there, and they're all back in person, but masking and social distancing, of
Mm.
course. But at least they're back in person, and things feel a little bit better because in the high school, uh, I don't know what percentage of the high school students are vaccinated, but I think almost all the teachers are. And that helps to kind of loosen things up and get things a little bit more back to normal.
Yep.
Yeah. I know for my college where uh, I'm back on campus, and the first 3 weeks will be online.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, because Texas is very much rising in cases and everything. The
oh,
governor doesn't isn't a huge fan of all this, but teachers and schools are fighting back, and so we
yeah,
appreciate that. So
sure.
I'm just so tired of Zoom, and it's draining.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
for teachers and students. Some
Yeah,
of my classes throughout the year, just it was sad because no one had their cameras on, and just the teacher was just talking to like blank screens. And
it's hard to do.
yeah, and especially the environment around you, just being online and family in the background, whether it be them talking on the phone or my dog's barking.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's tiring staring at a screen all day and getting no social human interaction face to face.
Mhm.
So I give a lot of credit to teachers for trying to come up with new ways to keep class interesting while online. So I think everyone's really excited to get back to not the way before the pandemic, because I don't think life will ever be the same, but hopefully we can take some of those lessons and apply them. So the new normal.
And maybe we
Um,
can make baby steps back to normalcy. I think we
yes.
are. And
I
I'm
hope
going to be
so.
optimistic. I try to be optimistic about it.
I mean, you
Yeah.
have to be optimistic about it. Otherwise, where are we going?
Yes. Right. That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, looking at the pandemic, it's a huge jump for science. The first mRNA based vaccine that's
Oh, yeah.
been access to
Right.
the
That was
public.
pretty cool.
So,
I've explained that vaccine to many people.
Well, I have too. I've tried to. Yes.
yes.
It's just mRNA. It's just, well, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I'm optimistic about us returning to a little more normal situation because it's been my experience through the years that the most effective technique is creating an environment in the classroom where the students perceive that the teacher genuinely cares about them as individuals. That's more
Mm,
powerful than any teaching technique,
yeah.
caring. And so, Lewis, when you talked about your Latin teacher coming in dressed as a Roman soldier, um, that shows the kids that the teacher cares in a huge way. And that goes a long ways in terms of motivating students, inviting them to participate in the learning experience,
Yeah.
inspiring them, not only motivating them, but inspiring them. Caring is the most important teaching technique. I'm convinced of it. And, I talk to teacher groups about the importance of caring, AKA love.
Mm,
And it's not rocket science, but a lot of audiences that I talk to, they're amazed, like, oh wow, this is a great idea, but it's not a new idea and it's not rocket science. It's actually a very simple concept, but and I think the reason students respond to caring and love so much is because and Lewis, maybe you could at least verify with me or tell me I'm way off base what I've learned about the brain, and I know you know more about the brain than I do. The wiring of the brain suggests what we're learning is suggests that we humans are, first of all, a very social species.
Oh yeah.
Brains are wired that way, um, and and that's another reason why we humans have hurt so much during the pandemic,
Mm,
because we are a social species. And then, secondly, our brains are wired for loving and being loved, being accepted.
yeah.
And I think that's why students respond so well in a classroom when their teacher perceives that the teacher genuinely cares about them as individuals. I think that's why. That's how we're wired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. For me, one of the most influential teachers for me was like my sixth grade English teacher in middle school. It was such a challenging class going from like maybe like elementary school writing and jumping into more like essay structured, and it was tough. I would like be getting like my first C's on different assignments, and he was very much a sarcastic, dry, tough love kind of teacher and really made you push to become a better
mhm,
student and writer. And there was one day where my allergies were just acting up so bad. Like every 5 minutes, I just kept up and getting tissues. Like every 5 minutes, just keep standing up from my desk and going to the desk and getting more tissues. And at one point, he's like, "Alana, you owe me $1." And I'm like, okay. And so the next day, I brought to class a Monopoly dollar, like from the game Monopoly. And then later on, he hung it on the bulletin board, like he hung it on his whiteboard, and that stayed in his classroom. So later on, when I would go visit him, even after like I didn't have him as a teacher anymore, that Monopoly bill was still on the board. And for me, that just felt like I was validated. And it
yep,
was such a huge thing for me.
yep.
Just my Monopoly, stupid Monopoly dollar bill was on his board. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So you
Yeah.
knew that he cared.
Yeah. I knew that he cared. And, even though he was very much a difficult teacher and it was hard to write and push myself, like he still cared. And I
Oh,
think that's what motivated me. And
yep.
yeah.
And different teachers, well, different people have different styles of humor.
Mm,
And I always tell young teachers it's so important for you to know and realize what your style of humor is, and don't try to be like somebody else. Recognize what your own unique style is, and then use it to your advantage, because kids in the classroom respond to humor. I think humans respond to humor, and so and I was trying to think over the years what my style of humor was, and I'll tell you this: it's not telling jokes. I'm a terrible joke teller. I'm just terrible. So I think what I landed on was my style of humor was kind of a self-deprecating style. Sort you know. Uh, I know that may sound on the surface terrible, but it's I don't know. I would say occasionally I would say something like, for example, okay, the other day I was thinking about this or that, and I said to myself, self, and so it's just self-deprecating. But anyway, you mentioned something, Alana, about posting that dollar, that fake dollar, Monopoly dollar, up on the board. It reminded me I used to like to post newspaper clippings in my classroom whenever my students made the newspaper.
mm,
And like if it was for chess club or 4-H fair awards or Eagle Scout or um, whatever, sports, athletic, events, whatever, whenever a student made the news, I would put their newspaper article on the wall. And then when they came into class the next day, I would tell them to autograph it, because I told them that someday when you're famous, that autograph is going to be worth lots of money and it's going to help fund my retirement, you know. And they responded positively to those newspaper articles. And if I could just tell one quick little story, as an example, I had a girl who came into class, a ninth grader, first day of school, ninth grade biology.
Mm.
And she made it very clear with her body language and her frown and everything that she and I were not going to get along in this class. And she was not going to like biology. And never saw her smile until late October, I think.
Mm.
Never smile. And always had kind of a chip on her shoulder. And I remember thinking, who knows what's going on in this poor kid's life? I don't know. Who knows? And so anyway, I always did my best, but it could never really break through until basketball season started. And then lo and behold, even though she was in the ninth grade, she was the star player on the varsity basketball team with the other sophomores and juniors and seniors, and the leading scorer and the point guard and just the star, and
Yeah.
winning games with last second, 3-point shots, and just amazing. And so the first time I saw a newspaper clipping that she was featured in, I put it on the wall. This was late October, maybe early November. And up until that time, her grades in class in biology had been dismal. And I posted that newspaper clipping that showed her winning the game on a last second shot. She came into school the next day and saw that newspaper article up there, and this big smile beamed across her face. The first time I had ever seen her smile. First time ever. And I told her, I said, I am so proud of you. Look at you. You're a ninth grader. Look what you're doing. I can't wait to watch you play in person. And she signed the autograph. She was smiling, kind of a shy smile. From that point on, oh my gosh, it was like a switch turned on. Whenever she'd see me in the hall, big smile. Mr. Ruhl, how are you today? It's like, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. How exciting this is. It brought tears to my eyes. But from that point on, her grades steadily started improving in biology class. And then in conversation with another teacher in the teacher's lounge, this other teacher told me, confided in me, and she said, so and so, I won't use that student's name, told me that biology was her favorite class. And I was like, oh my God. All I did was put her newspaper clipping up on the wall. Yeah. Just a simple act of caring. And I don't claim any brilliance or credit for this. It's not that at all. Because all I did was put a newspaper clipping on the wall. That's all I did. Simple things. So you just never know.
I remember I had a science teacher who did something similar. Well, I did decently well in a presentation about the Voyager probes in that class. And I did a lot of research. I don't know why I got really interested in the history and of these probes. Probably because it mixed both history and science, so my two favorite subjects.
Oh, yeah.
So I did a lot of research, and I could tell you anything. Well, not anymore, but I could back then tell you anything about these probes. And she was fairly impressed. And afterwards, she kind of kidnapped me whilst I was leaving school and was like, come with me. And she brought me to the theater and told me that I should join the theater troupe. Because she thought that I was really good at public speaking and that that's where I belonged, along with science and in history. But she thought that theater would really interest me and also help me. And ever since then, I've been acting. I've been in multiple productions every year, and that really started my passion for theater. My science teacher, not a drama teacher, not an English teacher.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was that act of caring. I already loved the class, but that made me love it a little more.
That's neat. That's neat.
So going back to your TED Talk, teaching methods for inspiring um, students of the future, how would you say a student can inspire a teacher?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Because
How
I think for us, teachers often inspire us, like
Yeah.
Lewis and I were just talking about. So,
how can a student inspire
a teacher,
a
Yeah.
teacher?
yes.
I would say if you're a student and you find something interesting, go ahead and show it and pursue it, and don't be concerned all that much about what your peers might think. If you think something is cool, um, please follow that passion and go with it. And you may have friends who might think it's weird that you're interested in something that they're not interested in, but you got to pursue that passion anyway, because hey, we're all individuals, and it's okay to to find yourself and be who you are, because I think you're going to find that most teachers, especially teachers who care, and you can tell the teachers who care, and I'm kind of biased, so I will say I think most teachers care. Okay, but teachers care. That's why they're there. And if you have a passion, if you think something's interesting that's happening in the classroom, go ahead and show your interest and not be so concerned about what your friends might think if you show your interest, because that's kind of what helps to keep the teacher going. If the students show an interest in what's going on in the classroom, and everybody's
Mm.
different, no two people are built exactly the same. So I would say if you find what you're interested in as a unique individual, that's going to inspire the teacher. Here's an example of that. I love music, but I'm not good at it. Okay. I, I mean, some people say I can sing, but I don't play any musical instruments. I wish I would have learned. And so I
Mm.
love music, but I'm not good at it. And so I had in my biology class, I remember one year, several students who were very talented musically. And during an activity that I called arts and entertainment, where they could choose any concept that they've learned about in a particular unit and prepare a project that they would demonstrate, where they could demonstrate in a very non traditional way their understanding of something that they learned about in that particular unit. It was called arts and entertainment. So they could write and perform a skit, or write and perform a song or a dance or something, and then present that in class, in biology class. And I remember I had one young lady who was very talented musically, and she pursued a career in music. Um, and she came in one day at the end of our DNA unit, and she had written a song about DNA and the Human Genome Project. And it was beautiful and it was brilliant. And she came in and we set a stool up in front of the class. And for her 5-minute presentation, she played her guitar and sang this song that she had written about DNA and the Human Genome Project. And it was awesome. It was wonderful. And she was pursuing her passion, something that I was not talented in, but what she did by being brave enough to pursue that passion in front of not only me, but all of her peers, that really inspired me. And I try to follow her musical career to this day. So I would say that I'm saying to students, don't suck up to your teacher. No, no, not that. But rather, uh, don't be afraid to pursue your passion and find a way of uh, following that passion within whatever the teacher's subject area is, and it will inspire the teacher.
All the more reason to turn on your cameras when you're in class so that the teacher can be inspired by you. For you to be inspired by the teacher needs to be inspired by you too. Learning is symbiosis in that sense.
Exactly. Very good point. Yes. Yes. And smile too. Smiles inspire people. A simple thing like a smile. A
Yeah.
smile is kind of a universal expression of acceptance and warmth and love. And don't be afraid to smile at your teacher.
Mm.
I'll tell you what, that's probably the thing that inspired me most of anything is when a student smiled.
Even with masks on, you can still tell when someone smiles. They squint up their eyes. Yeah.
Exactly. Eye
So
smiles.
I'd say smile. Yeah, smile.
I saw this amazing mask the other day, actually, speaking of smiles, on which it was written, there wasn't a smile drawn, no, it was written Schrodinger's smile. And that really got me. I love that mask right there.
Very good.
It's always
I
both
like
there
that.
and not there.
Right. Righto.
I love that. Well, I guess thank you so much, Joe, for coming on. I feel like you inspired us, and hopefully we inspired you some. So,
Well, I'm inspired by you too. I admire your energy and your creativity and the love and the care that you have for what you do. And
oh yeah,
we need more people in the world like that who are passionate, who are really into what they're doing, who love what they're doing. And everybody's different. Everybody's got a gift, and the most self-satisfying aspect of life, I think, is sharing that gift with others.
Mm,
And for young people who might be interested in a career in teaching, um, go for it. It's a hard job. It's hard work, but it's the most gratifying, I think. And it's a profession where you can truly leave a small piece of the world maybe a little
mm.
bit better than you found it, and that's as good as it gets. So my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been
Thank you for
fun.
being on the podcast. The beautiful words to end off this recording here.
All
So,
right.
thank you so much for being here. We'll see
Thank
all of
you.
you guys next time. And until then, bye bye.
Bye bye.